The massive Draconian stood perfectly still at his post, watching the crowd flow through Kepler 929's main concourse. Vextor had not moved for 3 hours. His bronze scales caught the artificial light, making him look like an ancient statue rather than a living being. Most species on the station had learned to ignore him. He was simply part of the scenery now, the silent guardian who never spoke, never ate in public, never showed emotion. A young Talarian merchant hurried past, her forearms carrying various goods. She didn't even glance at Vextor. To her, he was just another fixture of station life, like the humming air processors or the blinking navigation lights. That's how Vextor preferred it. 300 years of silence had taught him that invisibility was its own kind of armor. The transport alarm chimed through the station. Vextor's amber eyes shifted toward the docking bay. Another refugee ship. The war in the outer colonies was sending thousands of displaced beings to stations like this one. He picked up his data tablet and moved toward the security checkpoint, his footsteps heavy despite his careful movement. At nearly 3 meters tall with a tail that added another 2 meters behind him, Vextor couldn't truly be subtle, but he tried. The transport doors hissed open. A mixed group stumbled out, carrying whatever belongings they had managed to save. Vextor scanned the crowd with practiced efficiency. 2 Corthian families, their gray skin dull from stress. A cluster of Meridian traders arguing about lost cargo. And then he saw the humans. There were 5 of them, thin and exhausted like all refugees. But one caught his attention immediately. A young girl, maybe 16 in human years, with dark hair pulled back in a messy braid. She carried a small bag on one shoulder and clutched something wrapped in cloth against her chest. While the other humans looked around nervously, she stood perfectly still, her eyes closed, breathing slowly. Vextor felt something strange twist in his chest. He hadn't felt anything in so long that the sensation made him pause mid-step. The girl opened her eyes and looked directly at him. Most beings flinched when they made eye contact with a Draconian. She didn't. She just looked tired. He continued processing the refugees through security, typing questions on his tablet and showing them to each person. When the girl's turn came, she read his question and answered in a soft voice. Mira Chun, 16. From Colony 7 before the collapse. She placed her belongings on the scanner. The wrapped object revealed itself to be a stringed instrument, something like an ancient earth guitar but smaller. It was my grandmother's. Vextor typed. Any family on station? No family anywhere, Mira said simply. She didn't sound sad, just factual. It's just me now. He processed her through and watched as she gathered her things. She held the instrument carefully, as if it were made of glass. Then she walked into the station, joining the flow of bodies moving through the concourse. Over the next few days, Vextor found his attention drawn to the lower markets. This was unusual for him. His patrol routes were fixed, predictable. But something pulled him toward the commercial sector, where refugees often gathered to find work. On the 3rd day, he heard it. Music. Not the electronic sounds that usually played through the station speakers, but something organic, something played by hand. He followed the sound through the crowd. Mira sat on a cargo container, her legs dangling, playing her instrument. A small cup sat beside her with a few credits inside. The melody was simple but haunting. Several people had stopped to listen. Vextor positioned himself behind a support column where he could watch without being obvious. The song ended. Mira looked up and smiled at the small crowd. "Thank you," she said. "That one's called Stars Between Us. My grandmother taught me." As the crowd dispersed, her eyes found Vextor's hiding spot. She waved at him. He froze, unsure what to do. Slowly, he raised one clawed hand in return. Over the following weeks, this became routine. Mira would play in the markets, and Vextor would watch. Other station residents began to notice. The silent guardian, they whispered, was acting strange. He lingered in places he never used to patrol. He watched the human girl. Vextor told himself it meant nothing. He was simply ensuring station security. But deep inside, in a place he thought had died with his world, something was waking up, something that recognized the loneliness in Myra's music. Because it matched his own. Mira sat cross-legged on her small bunk in the refugee quarters, staring at the old data chip. She had looked at it 1,000 times, but tonight something felt different. Maybe it was being alone on an alien station. Maybe it was exhaustion. She plugged the chip into her tablet and scrolled through her grandmother's files again. Most of it was personal logs from 80 years ago. Her grandmother, Elena Chun, had been part of Earth's first real diplomatic mission to other worlds. She had visited dozens of alien planets, learning their customs and recording their stories. But one file always caught Myra's attention. It was labeled simply The Last Song. Mira opened it. Her grandmother's voice, preserved forever in digital memory, began to speak. I met them on their last day. The Draconians of the Flame Court knew their world was dying. A stellar cascade, they called it. Their star was collapsing in a way that would consume everything. They had days, maybe hours. But one elder, she wanted me to remember something. The recording shifted to music, a melody unlike anything Mira had ever heard. It sounded ancient and sad, but also beautiful. Her grandmother's voice returned. She sang this to her children as their world burned. She asked me to remember it, to prove they existed. I've tried to play it, but I don't think I'm doing it justice. Maybe someday someone will play it properly. Mira picked up her instrument. She had been practicing the melody for years, trying to get it right. Her fingers moved across the strings, reproducing the notes. It never sounded quite complete, but it was close. Across the station, Vexthor sat in his small quarters. He didn't sleep much anymore. Sleep brought dreams, and dreams brought memories. He stared at the wall where he had carved a single symbol in the metal, the crest of the Flame Court, his family symbol. He remembered the last day. The sky had turned red, then orange, then a burning white. Everyone knew what was coming. The evacuation ships couldn't carry everyone. Vexthor had been chosen to survive because of his military rank. His mate Syrah had placed their 2 hatchlings in his arms. "Take them," she had said. "Run." But there hadn't been time. The stellar cascade moved faster than predicted. He had watched them burn. Syrah had been singing to calm the children. The old lullaby, the song of ember and ash. Every draconian parent sang it. Every child knew it. 10,000 years of tradition, gone in fire. Vexthor had escaped on the last ship, and on that ship, surrounded by other survivors, he had made his vow. No more words. Words had failed to save them. Songs had failed to protect them. Silence was all he had left. He stood and walked to his console. Something nagged at his mind. For weeks now, the human girl's music had bothered him. Not because it was bad, because it was familiar. But that was impossible. In the lower markets, Mira played her evening set. The crowd was small tonight. She didn't mind. Playing helped her think. She worked through her usual songs, then paused. "I want to try something new tonight," she announced. "This is from my grandmother's collection. I don't know what it's called." She began to play the melody from the data chip. The strange, haunting tune filled the market. Vexthor was 3 levels away when he heard it. At first, he thought his mind was playing tricks. 300 years of grief could create illusions. But no, his feet moved before his mind caught up. He ran through corridors, pushing past startled aliens. His heart pounded in his chest. He burst into the market. Mira sat on her usual cargo container, playing. The melody was imperfect, played on a human instrument, but it was unmistakable. The song of ember and ash. His song. Sarah's song. His children's song. Mira stopped playing when she saw the massive draconian rushing toward her. The crowd scattered. Vexthor stopped 3 meters away, his whole body trembling. He grabbed his tablet with shaking claws and typed frantically. "Where did you learn that?" Myra's eyes widened. She had never seen him move so fast or show so much emotion. "My grandmother's files," she said carefully, "from 80 years ago. She visited a place called the Flame Court. Someone taught her the song before." She stopped. Vexthor had dropped his tablet. His amber eyes were locked on her instrument. His mouth opened slightly, showing rows of sharp teeth. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Mira understood. You knew this song, she whispered. You knew the people who sang it. Vexthor picked up his tablet with trembling claws. Yes, I'm so sorry, Mira said softly. My grandmother wrote that she wanted to preserve it, to remember them. Vexthor stood frozen. This human child carried the last piece of his world, the song his family died singing, and she had kept it alive. The station alarms blared at midnight. Vexthor was already moving toward the command center before the announcement came through. All personnel to emergency stations. Krell collective ships detected on approach. This is not a drill. The Krell were raiders. They swept through the outer systems, taking resources and leaving destruction behind. Kepler 929 was poorly defended, just a diplomatic station with basic security. Vexthor reached the command center where Station Commander Yelvik, a four-armed Bessarian, was coordinating evacuation procedures. We have 6 hours before they arrive, Yelvik said, his voice tight with stress. Maybe 8 if we're lucky. We're loading transports now, but we can only evacuate 60% of the station population. Vexthor grabbed his tablet. Defend? With what? Yelvik gestured at the tactical display. We have 40 security personnel and 2 small patrol ships. The Krell are bringing a war fleet. We can't fight them. Who stays behind? Whoever doesn't make it to the transports in time. Yelvik wouldn't meet his eyes. Refugees. Lower-level workers. I'm sorry, Vexthor. There's no other choice. Vexthor left the command center. His mind raced as he moved through the crowded corridors. People were panicking, rushing toward the docking bays. He saw Mira pushing against the crowd, moving in the wrong direction. He caught her arm gently. She looked up at him, her face determined. I'm not evacuating, she said before he could type anything. I heard the announcement. 40,000 people won't make it onto those ships. I'm staying to help whoever's left behind. Vexthor shook his head and typed. Too dangerous. Maybe, Mira said, but I'm tired of running. My whole colony ran. We scattered across space. And for what? To run again when the next threat comes? No, I'm staying. Something in her words hit Vexthor like physical force. He had been running for 300 years. Running from his grief. Running from his voice. Running from life itself. He looked at this human child who had somehow found his family's song in the darkness of space. And he made a decision. He typed quickly, I have plan. Need your help. They spent the next 4 hours in the station's engineering section. Mira had studied sonic technology in her colony school. She explained her idea to Vexthor and 3 other engineers who had volunteered to stay. The Krell communicate through sound frequencies. If we route the station's communication arrays into the external speakers, we could broadcast frequencies that disrupt their systems. It might buy us time, one engineer said doubtfully, but it won't stop them. Time is what we need, Mira countered. She looked at Vexthor. Right? He nodded. He was typing a message to send through secure channels, reaching out to any ships in the sector that might help. It was a desperate hope, but hope nonetheless. The Krell arrived ahead of schedule. 5 massive ships appeared on scanners, moving toward the station with clear hostile intent. The last evacuation transport had left an hour earlier. 15,000 beings remained on Kepler 929. Vexthor stood in the command center with Commander Yelvik, who had also refused to evacuate. Mira was in engineering with her finger on the broadcast trigger. The Krell ships opened fire on the station's shields. Now! Yelvik ordered. Mira activated the sonic weapon. A wave of disrupted frequencies shot out from the station's arrays. The lead Krell ship veered off course. Its navigation system scrambled. The others slowed, confused. It's working, someone shouted. But the Krell adapted quickly. Within minutes, they had adjusted their shields to filter the frequencies. They resumed their approach, weapons charging. An explosion rocked the station. One of the patrol ships had been destroyed. The second was damaged and retreating. Vexthor watched the tactical display. In minutes, the Krell would breach the hull. Thousands would die. A support beam collapsed 3 levels below the command center. Mira was down there. Vexthor's body moved before his mind registered the decision. He ran his massive form crashing through corridors. He reached the engineering section to find it half collapsed. Through the smoke, he saw Mira trapped under debris, struggling to breathe. For 300 years, he had been silent. For 300 years, he had sworn never to speak. But now, seeing this child who had given him back his song, who had shown that memory was stronger than death, he felt his vows shatter like glass. Mira! His voice was thunder. It echoed through the station, a sound not heard in centuries. The word tore from his throat with 300 years of silence behind it. He reached her in seconds, lifting the debris with strength born of desperation. Mira gasped for air, staring up at him in shock. "You spoke," she whispered. "Yes," Vexthor said, his voice rough and strange his own ears. "And I will speak again. We survived this together." Vexthor carried Mira back to the command center, his voice now giving orders for the first time in 3 centuries. Station personnel stared in shock as the Silent Guardian coordinated their defense. His tactical mind, dormant for so long, came alive with the clarity of ancient training. "Redirect all power to forward shields," he commanded, his deep voice carrying authority that made even Commander Yelvik step back. "Pull security teams to sections 12 through 18. Set up choke points at every corridor junction." The Krell ships circled the station like predators. Another blast shook the structure. "Hull breach," alarm screamed on level 4. Vexthor moved through the chaos, his presence steadying the frightened defenders. Mira limped beside him, refusing medical attention. "The sonic weapon isn't enough," she said, breathing hard. "They adapted too fast. We need something else." Vexthor nodded. His mind worked through possibilities. The Krell were jamming all communications. His distress call had likely never left the system. They were alone. He looked at Mira, at her grandmother's instrument still strapped to her back despite everything. An idea formed, a desperate, impossible idea. "Your song," he said slowly, "the one for my world." It wasn't just music. Mira looked confused. "What do you mean?" "The Draconians used harmonic mathematics for deep space communication. Before modern technology, we sang across the void between worlds." Vexthor's eyes brightened. "The Song of Ember and Ash contains coordinate harmonics, signals that can travel farther than any radio. You think other Draconians might hear it?" "I thought I was alone," Vexthor admitted. "But if others survived, if they wandered the space lane searching, they would know that song. They would recognize it anywhere." Mira pulled her instrument around. "Then we play it, loud enough for the whole sector to hear." They rushed to the communication room. Engineers worked frantically to boost the signal range. Vexthor stood at the microphone, his claws trembling slightly. He hadn't sung in 300 years. The last time was with Syrah, moments before the flames took her. "I don't know if I can," he said quietly. Mira placed her hand on his arm, so small against his massive scale limb. "You already broke your silence. The hard part is done. Now we just remember them together." She began to play. The melody filled the communication room, amplified through every speaker on the station, and broadcast into space. Vexthor closed his eyes. He remembered Syrah's voice, his children's laughter, the warm nights on his lost world, when families would sing this song under 3 moons. He opened his mouth and sang. The words were in his native tongue, ancient and powerful. His voice, and used for so long, cracked at first but grew stronger. The song spoke of fire and memory, of love that outlasts death, of embers that never truly die. Station personnel stopped their work to listen. Even in a language they didn't understand, they felt the weight of it. The Krell ships continued their assault. Another hull breach. More alarms. But Vexthor and Mira kept playing, kept singing. The signal shot out into space, carrying harmonics that human ears couldn't fully hear, but that draconian sensors were built to detect. Minutes passed. The Krell broke through to level 6. Security teams fought desperately, buying time. Then, a voice crackled through the communication system, speaking in Draconian. "This is Warship Eternal Flame. We hear you, brother. We are coming." Vexthor's voice faltered. Mira kept playing, her fingers steady on the strings. He found his voice again and sang louder, a beacon in the dark. Space tore open with flashes of light. 3 Draconian warships dropped out of FTL travel, massive and ancient, covered in ceremonial markings of the Flame Court. They had been wandering, searching for any other survivors of their lost world, and they had heard the song. The Krell fleet turned to face this new threat. They were outmatched. Draconian weapons, perfected over millennia before their civilization chose peace, made quick work of the raiders. Within 20 minutes, the Krell ships were destroyed or fleeing. Vextor sank to his knees, exhausted. Mira sat beside him, her instrument still in her hands. Around them, the station erupted in cheers. "We did it," Mira said softly. "You did it," Vextor corrected. "You kept the song alive. You kept my people alive." A message came through from the lead warship. "Permission to dock. We have much to discuss, brother. We thought we were the last. We have been alone for so long." Vextor looked at Mira and smiled, an expression his face had almost forgotten how to make. "So was I," he said, "until a human child taught me that memories are stronger than silence." The docking bay filled with Draconians for the first time in centuries. Vextor stood at the airlock, watching as his people emerged from the warships. They were survivors like him, scattered across the galaxy, believing they were alone. 47 Draconians total, all that remained of a civilization that once numbered in the billions. An elderly female approached him first. Her scales were pale silver with age, and she moved slowly, but her eyes were bright. She looked at Vextor for a long moment, then spoke in their ancient language. "You sang the song. I never thought I would hear it again." "I had help," Vextor replied, gesturing to Mira, who stood quietly beside him. "This human kept our song alive when I had forgotten how to sing it." The elder looked at Mira with curiosity. "A human preserved our music?" "My grandmother learned it from your people," Mira explained, "right before the end. She asked me to remember it." The elder's eyes moistened. "Then your grandmother gave us a gift beyond measure. She proved we existed, that we mattered." She bowed her head to Mira, a gesture of deep respect among Draconians. Over the following days, the station transformed. The Draconian survivors stayed, helping repair the damage from the Krell attack. They shared stories with Vextor, filling in pieces of history he thought were lost forever. Some had been off-world during the stellar cascade. Others had escaped on distant colony ships. Each had believed they were among the last. "Why did you stay silent?" one younger Draconian asked Vextor one evening. They sat in the observation deck, watching ships come and go. "We searched for other survivors." You could have answered, "I thought silence honored the dead." Vextor admitted, "I thought if I stopped speaking, stopped singing, I could preserve something purer, keep their memory untouched." "But memory needs voice," the young Draconian said. "Songs die in silence." Mira joined them, carrying her instrument. "He knows that now," she said with a small smile. "That's why we're starting something new." She had spent the week working with the Galactic Council, proposing an idea. The Council, impressed by how a single song had saved thousands of lives, agreed immediately. Mira would establish the Cultural Memory Archive, a project dedicated to preserving the songs, stories, and traditions of all species, especially those facing extinction. "We almost lost the Draconians completely," Mira explained to the council members. "Not just their bodies, but their culture, their songs, everything that made them who they were. How many other species have we lost this way? How many songs have died that we never even knew existed?" The council provided funding in space. Within a month, the archive began. Species from across the galaxy sent their music, their histories, their art. Mira cataloged everything, determined that no civilization would be forgotten. Vextor became her partner in this work. He helped translate Draconian texts, taught her their language, and shared stories of the Flame Court. Together, they traveled to other stations, collecting memories from refugees and survivors. 1 year after the Krell attack, they returned to Kepler 929 for a memorial service. The station's main hall was filled with beings from dozens of species. A monument had been erected in honor of the Flame Court, a crystalline structure that caught light and threw rainbow colors across the walls. Vextor stood before the crowd, no longer silent, no longer hiding. Beside him stood Mira, her instrument ready. The elderly Draconian, whose name was Keshare, joined them. "We gather to remember," Vextor began, his voice strong and clear. "Not just the Draconians we lost, but all beings who have passed into memory. We remember because forgetting is a true death." Keshare spoke next in Draconian, then translated. The Flame Corps believe that as long as one person remembers a name, speaks a word, sings a song, that civilization lives. Today, because of a human child and her grandmother, we live. Mira began to play. The song of ember and ash filled the hall, but this time she wasn't alone. Vextor sang with her. Then Keshare joined, and then all 47 Draconian survivors, their voices blending in harmony that hadn't been heard since their world died. The crowd listened in complete silence. Many wept, even species who didn't understand the words. They felt the weight of it, the grief and the hope intertwined. When the song ended, Mira spoke softly. "My teacher once told me that every song is a bridge between the past and future. We stand on that bridge now. We carry the memories of those who came before, and we pass them to those who come after." Vextor placed a gentle claw on her shoulder. "You gave me back my voice," he said. "Let me teach you our language completely, so the Flame Court's words never die." Mira smiled up at him, this massive alien who had become family. "And I'll teach you human songs. We'll remember each other's dead. That's what makes us alive." Around them, beings from across the galaxy nodded in agreement. They understood now. Memory was not just preservation. It was an act of love. And love, they were learning, could cross any distance, survive any darkness, and unite any species willing to listen.